in my phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Hello, friends. Hello, friends.
It is
Hello,
our
friends.
favorite
Welcome to this tradition
day of the
unlike
week.
any other.
Jerry Reynolds stopping by 4 p.m. Really looking forward to having a conversation with him. We've got Kings news to talk about. I'm sure some of you have already put it in the chat. The Chicago Bulls references to Sacramento are not going to get any better after this one. But we'll hit it on the other side. And how about the NBA playoffs? 2 incredible games last night. I mean, would you say they were as good as that game 7 in Winnipeg? There's an argument there, even though they were game 1s. How do you feel about those series now that both underdogs took game 1 in the West, in the West and the East in each game? So really cool stuff. Jerry, 4 p.m. right here with us. Grant, 5 p.m. We're double-headering it. This is going to be the last day of the King's Court until Friday. So let's get at it. Let's have a great show. Call the show. Put your questions in the chat for Jerry, and we will make it a good 90 minutes. Thanks for being here. Court's in session on If You Don't Like That.
Late nights on the screen, hey, it's Grant and Ryan. We bleed purple, talking hoops, never lying. Sacramento Kings, we rise and we fall. If you don't like that, then you don't know ball. Jerry sitting with the stories of the game, spilling all the truth, driving legends insane. From the Cow Palace days to Arco's roar, this town's heart beats on the hardwood floor. If you don't like that, turn away now.
Do me a favor. I rarely ask this when we bump back in. Give us a big thumbs up. Give us a like. Retweet us if you haven't before. It would mean a lot to Grant and I and the growth of this channel. We are here in the off season, working hard and doing it for you. And thanks for making the show what it is. Jerry Reynolds, as I said, at 4 o'clock. Any questions you have from him, we'll bounce the Mike Woodson question off of him. Also want to talk to him about the first round of the playoffs, the game 1s in the NBA last night. I know my man Patrick is celebrating over in Long Island. How about the Denver Nuggets and Aaron Gordon going in to OKC? A game that they had not led since the first quarter. Since the first darn quarter. Jokic ends up with 16 points after he gets his 5th foul in the 4th quarter with 6:30 to go. And they pulled that one out. Did the Thunder play it too conservative? Are you worried about the Thunder? This throws tinder on most people's argument when it comes to the Thunder. They're inexperienced. I thought they just played it a little too safe. I don't think Holmgren necessarily choked. He's a 74% free throw shooter, so it wasn't anything out of ordinary for him to miss a couple. But man, you were shocked. I was shocked watching the game. The fans were definitely shocked. Denver stepped up, though, and the Thunder did him so many favors by sending him to the free throw line. So we can get into both of the games as we will. We'll get into the Kings news here in a second because it has been breaking this afternoon. Let's get to you in the chat first, since we've got Jerry coming up at 4 o'clock. Appreciate you being here. Napes, as I said, he is here at 5. So we're going back to back again. Join him on his show. I know he had a different view, a little bit of a different view on the changes with the coaching staff and the reports. I kind of still stand by what I said yesterday, although a name that many of you have thrown around looks like is going to be on his way back to Sacramento, which I do like, and we can get to in a second. Who's kicking us off? Tristan. Of course, Tristan's kicking us off. Can you ask him about Darius Songaila? What do you want me to ask him in regards to Darius Songaila? I will. You just got to let me know what you want me to ask him. Hey, Jerry, what about Darius Songaila? Is that what you want me to say, Tristan? Or is it, hey, was he a great player off the court? What made him an NBA guy, Jerry? Is there something that we didn't see in the games that made him special? Is something like that, Tristan?
Tristan, pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, come on, Tristan.
Come on.
It's like, Tristan, it's like driving up to the drive-thru. Hi, can I take your order? I'll take it. Like, that's what that is. It's Tuesday already. That's right. And we got a short week because I got to get on an airplane tomorrow. And by the way, boarding pass B08. B08. So I guess I posed the question, should I pay the upgrade to get the A1 through the A15? Adam, Walt Williams would be a great addition to the front office. Yeah, the Wizard. Do you think the Wizard would rock his long socks though? I think you'd have to put it in his contract that he was not allowed to wear pants, has to wear shorts, and he has to wear the long socks. 100%. Tristan back in. Looking like a bench full of ex-players on the coaching staff. Doug, Bobby, Songaila, Corbin, Jason Thompson. We'll see. There's definitely some reports going around. We'll talk about a couple of them. Patrick off the clock, still basking in last night's glory for the Knicks. How about that? Celtics, anybody that's complaining about the Celtics shooting 63s, stop. They've done it all year. And you know why they shoot 63s? Because they usually shoot in the neighborhood of 10 more shots than their opponents. And they did that last night. So they just didn't convert. 15 of 60. Brunson had a chance to win it in regulation. For Jerry, from the teams who are in the playoffs, who will be a future king. Interesting. Okay. We can get those in there. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, we'll see. Baron Corbin is on the Kings. Pretty sure that's Tyrone Corbin, y'all. Come on. Sure, LOL, Carmichael Dave said Darius is being interviewed for an assistant position. Look, I like Darius. I just don't know what Darius has been doing as of late. So, PDA, baby, not around me. I will get, you know what? Did you see that video of the FBI agent? Maybe I'm late to this party, but the FBI agent that's sitting on a plane and he's got the flight attendant telling him, show me your ID. And then there's an officer right there, show me your ID. And he's trying to keep his cool. And he's like, I only need to show my ID when I board a plane and when I go through security. You don't need to see it now. You don't have the right to ask for it. And it goes in that circle that you would expect. All right, we're going to rip you off the plane. Do you have bags? No, you're not going to take me off this plane. And finally, the guy stands up and he rips an FBI badge from under his shirt and shows it to the police officer. And he's like, here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. You're going to walk away. And you guys are going to leave me alone because you're not going to blow a 3-year sting on this. And yeah. That was the wrap. So if I get some PDA, I'm going to be like that FBI agent. I'm going to stand up and get upset. Heck yeah. Socks are high. I am heading to Utah. I'm heading to Utah for a couple of days. Well, one day. The higher the rocks. Yeah. So let's talk about the Kings news really quick. Oh, Dennis. All right. Let's get Dennis in. It's too bad we can't use any of the former players that's coming to Sacramento and play on the court instead of assistant coach or assistant general manager. Yeah, I actually put out a tweet about this one. I'm like, can he still run the point? I almost want him on the court more than I want him in the front office. What I'm referring to is a report that came out from Sham Charania, also Sean Cunningham, a couple actually from Sean right there. BJ Armstrong set to be the assistant GM to Scott Perry. For those that don't know, BJ Armstrong, also part of the podcast that Scott Perry would commonly be a guest on or participate on. BJ Armstrong, besides podcasting, has been an agent. Before becoming an agent, he did work a little bit in Chicago's front office with Jerry Krause back in the day, but predominantly agent work and the podcast game. So BJ Armstrong, how you feeling about that? Interesting name. I mean, I guess I can't really make a judgment on it. Again, assistant GM. Don't know how much that's going to play into Scott Perry and what his role is. Are they going to work together? You know what I mean? Like, Scott Perry's going to have the say, but we know Vivek probably is going to have the say for both of them. But does that make you feel any way that the podcast guy is now coming on as an assistant GM in the NBA? I do like that he's been an agent, but Scott Perry has played up this whole thing about how he knows all the players, he knows the agents, and maybe we are under evaluating. We are not giving enough weight, credence to the fact that maybe that is a positive thing. I don't quite know for sure. The second part of that, Bobby Jackson is looking like he's going to be on Doug's staff. I like it. Bobby was the head coach of the Stockton Kings, currently, most recently, assistant coach with the Philadelphia 76ers. Why not? Philadelphia's situation is just as messed up as the Kings. Why not bring Bobby in? I think it's a decent choice. I like that Bobby has the ties. He gets it here in Sacramento. He's been in the organization, so he understands the score. So I am okay with that. Now, all these other names being floated around. What's up, MC? Appreciate it. I can't confirm or deny because I have not heard really any names outside of the reporting that we are sharing right here. So if people are saying Sangaila and Tyrone Corbin and all those guys, then I'll go back. I'll start thinking about it. I'll start putting it to practice and see what I think. But BJ Armstrong, it's just a really interesting choice. BJ Armstrong, an old name from the 90s or the 80s or 90s, Orlando Magic. You remember him from the Magic, huh? And not the Bulls. BJ with Bill Cartwright, Bill Wennington, all those guys. Loved that we brought Bobby back. Hated that he went to Philly. Well, it's not official that Bobby is coming back, but it looks like this thing is starting to come together. Now, if we flash back to Scott Perry's introductory press conference, remember, this is what he had to say about what he was going to be looking for in his front office.
Scott, I wanted to ask, you talked about ownership and the directive. I want to ask, what is there a number one focus that ownership wanted you to kind of come and clean up and fix up, right? Is there one thing in particular? And number two, want to ask about your front office staff. Do you have a timeline on when you plan to finalize that?
First, like I said, the number one thing from ownership, Chris, again, and I said it earlier, it is to build this sustainable platform for sustainability of winning and success. That is the most important thing, and Vivek's pledged support to help me see that vision through. That is first and foremost. Secondly, to your question about the staff, right now, I have no updates on that. I'm in the process right now as people who are in this room right now, a number of them King employees. I'm meeting with every single person in the basketball operations department. And that's probably going to take me almost a couple weeks. But I'm doing that. I want to learn their stories, learn about them, and see who really fits us moving forward, who may have concerns with us moving forward. But that's, to me, the most prudent thing to do. That's the most respectful thing to do. Again, I've been around the league a long time, and I want to make sure that my vision is clear about what I want to get done here, and we'll see. So it will be a slow evolving process, I think, in terms of staff additions, subtractions, but ready for that as well too. And just rest assured, any additions will be high level, capable people with character. Character is very important.
High level, capable people with character. Does that hit the marks for you? I can't speak to BJ Armstrong's character. I know what he was on the court. I never listened to his podcast, so I will defer. I never hear anything bad about him. I don't mind that it's a younger kind of first time, for the most part, guy in a front office. I think that Grant had said this. He was hoping for a younger GM that was really fighting for his job. He had to be successful because he might not get another job. So is that going to be BJ? I don't know. I mean, BJ leaving the agent side of it to come to the front office is interesting to me. But, Scott saying that this was going to be a slow and evolving process, it's been anything but that, to be quite frank with you. He said it was going to take weeks to meet with everybody. And at the press conference last week, he said he had already met with everyone in the organization, including the staff, or including the cooks. So to me, it feels like what we kind of thought about before. This is not a GM and this is not a coach that are on the same page. At least from the press conference to what we are seeing now, you're seeing, in my opinion, the areas where Scott Perry is making his decisions and Doug is clearly moving to make his decisions with the type of guys that he wants. If some of the names you guys have put in the chat, besides Bobby Jackson, are true, those make sense to me. You know what doesn't make sense to me? Mike Woodson. Nothing against Mike Woodson. Not saying that he is not a qualified candidate and he couldn't be or won't be good for the Kings. But doesn't that feel like a Scott Perry kind of move compared to what you're hearing about Doug? So I wonder about the cohesion. We knew it was going to be difficult when you are a coach that's handpicked by the owner and you are a GM that's taking the job, being told who your coach is going to be. But the fact that the Kings are getting through it, they're getting stuff in place, I can't hate on them for that. Let's see what comes through, what ends up coming together. And I'm going to get Jerry's thoughts on that when he comes onto the show here at 4:00. Like, if Jerry was going to be building, if Jerry was the coach right now, if Jerry was named head coach of this team, how would he build this staff out? What's he looking for? I want to see and get his take on Mike Woodson as well. And we're going off of reports. We're not going off of anything verified. The only thing that has been verified, which is actually from Shams Charania, and Sean Cunningham acknowledges it here, that BJ Armstrong is going to be the assistant GM to Scott Perry. So give me your thoughts on that. Again, I don't have much to add to it other than it kind of feels like, hey, buddy, why don't you come tag along with me here in Sacramento? I guess I'll go back to this litmus question, which it's Grant's question. How many other teams would be interviewing BJ Armstrong for their front offices? And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that BJ's coming, but I also have to ask that question. And I don't think it's very many. We looked at the JJ Redick thing. Jerry and I last year, we joked around and we were half serious. We said, why not just make LeBron the player coach of the Lakers? Just do it. He's the one making the decisions. And then it ends up being JJ Redick who comes in, and they were doing a podcast together, right? And JJ actually did a really good job this year in Los Angeles. So that might be very true here. Hell, BJ not being in Sacramento, not dealing with Vivek, maybe he can play the Vivek game and pick Scott up. I don't know. These are all things that time will tell, but I go back to the same thing. This does not feel like a coach and a GM that are on the same page. This feels like these are your moves here on the left side, and these are my moves here on the right side. Let me know what you decide. It feels like delegating decisions rather than making decisions together. And that is strictly off of the optics. Off of the optics. Doug bringing in, talking to past players. Bobby Jackson makes all the sense in the world. I love that. I absolutely love that. I would love it more if Bobby was the associate head coach. To be quite frank with you, Bobby is more, let's be blunt, he's more ready. He's more seasoned to be a head coach in the NBA than Doug. So I'm good with that. That makes all the sense in the world. That's a Doug Christie move. Mike Woodson? Is that a Doug Christie move? Dude, Mateen Cleaves is waving a towel somewhere. And he was so good. Every team has to be like a puzzle. And he was part of that puzzle. He was so good for that team. He did so much more than wave the towel. He was an energy guy, even though he didn't step on the floor. Question, ask Jerry which veteran point guard he would like to sign. Personally, don't like any of the options. Which point guard would you trade for? You think Cam Jones will be available with our 42nd pick? I have no idea if he's going to be available. The 42nd pick, way too early for that. Tristan Wright, feels to me like Doug and Scott are taking turns picking who they want, not necessarily lockstep decisions. Well, again, are we to expect lockstep decisions when we know how the process played out before? Right? We are just expecting, or at least hoping, take expect away. We're hoping that the chips fall where they fall and it works out. That's really what we're hoping for here in Sacktown, but it's just weird. It's like the mix of stuff. Like, I can tell you right now what's going to happen. Mike Woodson, if he's the associate head coach, that's going to be a Scott Perry guy, in my opinion. That's a Scott Perry guy. So the pull and tug that Grant talks about with Doug possibly having a short leash as head coach is going to be just that. Hey, Vivek, man, Mike Woodson right there for you. 315 wins as a head coach in the NBA. 16-22 in the playoffs, Vivek. He's right there. First seat. Like, is Doug putting that guy first seat to him? I just don't see it. I saw younger names, past players, same things that you guys are seeing, Dave's talking about. That's what I saw as a Doug Christie staff. Now, I did say that I do believe it needs to be somebody with head coaching experience, NBA head coaching experience. But there's some of those guys that are still out there that have that, and so that are probably wanted too by a lot of other teams. So that's where we stand right now. Give me your thoughts on it. Jerry Reynolds joining us here in just a little bit. Brother Sai says solid coaching staff. All right, there you go. See, everybody's got a different opinion of this whole thing. He's the next head coach. Well, Patrick, no more Bulls, right? It's just incredible how many Bulls are ending up here in Sacramento. It's like Bulls, Pistons, and Kings. How would you merge those three franchises together? That is what we know. Yeah, we know about that one as well. We went over that. So a lot going on. You got playoff basketball again tonight. Pacers, Cavs, game 2 in that series. The Cavs, significant injury concerns. They've got 3 big-time names for them that are questionable tonight in Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter. All 3 with separate problems. Garland most notably has been out with that toe injury for about a week and a half. Put Shump on the bench. Where's Rajon Rondo? What's he doing these days? He was as much a coach as a player when he was here in Sacktown. Wouldn't mind a little bit of him in our lives. Rhino, remember NBA Jam on SNES? Is that Sega Genesis? Armstrong was playable in the game. Dude, NBA Jam was the jam. In fact, I think that's probably, and I might lose some of you here, when I think about even today with where the games are at, how you can play online, you can do GM mode, you can have your seasons. I still think I would rather have NBA Jam in front of me than any other basketball video game that's come out. He's on fire. Like the guy's jumping through the roof. You would always play. Who did I always play with? I'm trying to think about that. But NBA Jam. What about Temco Bowl on Nintendo? That was a solid football game for its time. Like if I'm going Mount Rushmore for me of video games, because I do not play a lot of video games. In fact, I hardly play video games. If I'm going Mount Rushmore of sports games, I think you've got to have the Madden series up there. It's going to be hard to leave one of these out, but I'm going to leave one out. The Madden series has to be up there. You've got to have Tiger Woods 2000 golf up there. You've got to have NBA Jam. And then it's either Temco Bowl or Ken Griffey Jr. baseball on Super Nintendo, where you could do the home run derby with those juiced up cartoon batters with syringes hanging from their heinies. That was so cool. It was like the only game where you could actually do home run derby. It's a tough one. We got Jerry ready. Should we ask Jerry about video games? I think we should ask Jerry about video games. Wonder what Jerry used to play back in the day. That's funny. You know the concern, though, with video games these days is kids, instead of going fishing, they fish on video games. You know, like we used to go out and play and do those things. The video games were for the rainy days. The video games were for the times that it was dark and you couldn't go out and play. Mike Tyson Punch-Out. All right. NBA Jam. Super Nintendo. Good prospects, GMs, coaches, and assistants do not have Sacktown on the radar. It's a good point, Paul. But I think you do have to have Sacktown on your radar from this sense that you are, or you could be, a quick move away from having another shot at that head chair. I think that is the enticing part of coming to Sacramento. Now, dealing with the rest of it, it's tough. And where's Leandro Barbosa going to play into all this? I'll be really interesting to see how Doug lines the staff up. But it's good that Doug is doing his interviews, taking his time. It's not one of those things where 2 days after being introduced as head coach, the coaching staff was already in place, which we kind of joked about. So I'm good with all that. I can kind of see through the template here. It's like, okay, Perry move. Now it's your move, Doug. Doug move. All right. It's like a snake draft with fantasy football, but with front offices. That's kind of, and coaching staffs. Like Mike, with that list of names that you all put up here, Mike Woodson is the one that just jumps out to me as it just doesn't make sense. He makes sense. Again, he's a good coach. I get it. He's coming off of a 4-year run at Indiana that just ended. So it's like associate head coach right back to the NBA with the Kings. Why, Doug? What's your tie to him, Doug? And maybe there are ties there, but it feels like there's a lot more ties to Scott Perry. It feels like had Scott Perry had the choice to hire his own head coach, it wouldn't have been Doug. Probably would have been Mike Woodson. This is strictly speculation. But wouldn't it make all the sense in the world if you're Scott Perry and you're talking to Vivek Ranadive about taking this position while there's already a GM in place and Vivek's telling you that Doug Christie is going to be the coach? Wouldn't it make sense to say, okay, well, I get to name the associate head coach? Because Vivek, when your coach doesn't work out, then my coach can step in. Sorry, I'm not trying to be tin hat guy, but I mean, I'm not exactly cracking an Adam here. Like, and not Adam. Like Adam wrestling, not him. Although I would like to crack him over the head with a steel chair once in a while. But, it's just interesting. All of our coaches are bald. Yeah, well, come home. Woodson feels like a Mike Brown part 2. Woodson from the Detroit days with Scott. Exactly. That's the tie that we made last week. Yesterday, excuse me. Not last week, yesterday. It took me all of 10 minutes to tie all of them back. So, the fact that we're kind of seeing through it, it just, it tells you how poorly they have handled things since Monty's, what do you want to call it? Exit as GM. Crazy. Yeah. Yes, you. Yes, I would like to crack you over the head with a steel chair. Everybody in the crowd would be like, yeah! There you go, Adam. I'm just playing with you. Let's see. Progressive, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while. Who will have better next season, Sac State or San Diego State? Man, that is a very good question, Progressive, because completely different levels of competition. And the money is so much different. Like I played for you what one of my friends who's on the coaching staff at San Diego State had been doing, going on the radio. Instead of being a coach, she was turning into a panhandler. And that's exactly what all these college coaches are doing right now. That's why you're seeing GMs brought in, and they're doing that just to be able to retain their own players. But I think San Diego State probably has a better year than Sac State. Probably. Yeah, what's Steve Nash doing these days? It's a good question. Wonder what he's doing these days. 2K8 and 2K11 were solid too, though. See, like that's where I kind of went off the map with video games. I was not playing them at that time. Mars, what's up? Well, if Doug fails, Bobby is the next coach. Then if he fails, the Kings will buy out Mike Bibby from Sac State. So this past King, yeah, I hear you, brother. No, I think Mike Woodson. If Mike Woodson, and again, Sam Amick's reporting on that, if it ends up being Mike Woodson, my guess is Mike Woodson would be the next head coach. It would not be Bobby. Now, I don't know what Bobby Jackson's relationship is like with Vivek Ranadive. Have no idea. But you saw what happened. Like, okay, let me put it to you this way. This is what's interesting about it. You saw how some of the coaches this year reacted to Doug being put in as the interim head coach, right? It was Mike Brown's staff, and Doug jumped everybody on it to get that job. Luke Laux goes to Florida State, which I can't blame him. Why wouldn't you go take the job at your alma mater? The only thing that's not a dream about that is navigating the NIL stuff right now. But that's a dream. I have to assume that's a dream for Luke Laux. So I get that. The Jay Triano stuff, I know there was a ton of tension there. A ton. It seemed fairly obvious. In fact, I got to give credit to a caller that called up on our post-game show after the play-in loss. He was pretty right on the screws when it came to that situation. And he said he was close to it and he was plugged in. And, I didn't want to go off onto that tangent at that time, but he was right on with a lot of the stuff he said. So you can go back and listen to that if you're subscribed to the channel. But what if, okay, let's assume Doug brings in some of these kings. Bobby Jackson, I like, by the way. Love it. Said it all show. Sangaila, Ty Corbin. Let's assume all these guys come in. And then Mike Woodson takes over. What's that going to look like? Do you think any of those guys, maybe outside of Bobby Jackson, Mike Woodson, would have hired as his staff? So that's why I just think it's really interesting. Like you're not setting, it just feels like you're going two different directions. And you got to hope that one of them works out. It just does. So anyways, Jerry Reynolds coming up here in about 20 minutes. If you have any questions for Jer, put them in the chat. We will get to them. Looking forward to talking to him about the playoffs. A lot of good stuff going on in the NBA. You got Stanley Cup playoffs. Some miscellaneous news and notes from around the NBA. Not really miscellaneous. This is important. Kenny Atkinson is your coach of the year in the NBA, coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That is not a big surprise. Sam Presti is your executive of the year. Not a big surprise either in Oklahoma City. Sam Presti has just set the model on how to do things and has set that Oklahoma City up team really, really well. Outside of what happened last night, you've got Golden State and the Timberwolves tonight. Game 1 of that series, and you've got game 2 of the Pacers and the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about the 3 guys that are questionable. See if we have any update at the moment on those guys. Cavs will start Jerome, Mitchell, Wade, Allen on Tuesday. So Hunter is out. All 3 of them, Mobley, Garland, and Hunter, are out of game 2 for Cleveland. How about that? Yeah, Tristan, you knocked it out of the park, brother. Diversity of thought with unity of purpose. Okay. So diversity of thought, great. I don't know about the unity of purpose. I can't wait to get Jerry's take because, again, I'd be a hypocrite if I sat up here and I was like, oh, BJ Armstrong, terrible. Why would he doesn't have any front office experience? Because I sat here and said, I think you need a GM along those lines. I want a younger guy. And BJ is not necessarily younger, but he's been in the league. He's been an agent. I want somebody that's kind of a wild card. I think that's the only way it works. If it's a retread, which you can't really call Scott Perry a retread because he's never been the man in an organization. He's been part of organizations, but he hasn't been the GM. But with BJ Armstrong, okay, maybe he fits some of that build. And again, I sat here middle of the season. I sat here when the coaching search was going on, although I was telling you that it would be Doug because we knew it was going to be Doug. I also said it needed to be somebody with NBA experience. Somebody that's X's and O's. So even if it was Doug, you needed that person sitting next to him. So maybe Mike Woodson is that guy, but it just, Mike Woodson just feels like an outlier when you look at the other names that are kind of leaking out when it comes to the remainder of Doug's staff. Steve Nash, I believe, it's going to work for Amazon as a broadcaster. By the way, that's another news and notes thing. You know, the original NBA on NBC guy. NBC is going to recreate his voice with AI and use it for their broadcasts. I think that's really cool. Number one, shout out to him. That tells you how legendary that voice is. I just think that's so cool. And you're right. Steve Nash and LeBron are doing a podcast together. So it makes sense if he is going to call some games. Some other miscellaneous notes around the league. Looks like the Rockets and Fred VanVleet are looking to push back the date that the Rockets have to make a decision on the option. Or he has to make the decision on the option, excuse me. So that's of note. And Ime Udoka said the Rockets need 90% free throw shooters and 50% three-point shooters. Okay. I got DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine for you. How about that? How about you go get one of those guys? They'll solve one of those problems. It'll be different. BJ is a champion. It's a good point. 3-time NBA champion, old school times NBA ball players, winning in Sacramento. Okay, but Stan, old school times NBA ball players running it in Sacramento. Isn't that kind of half the point? I think that's where, and I said this, and Grant doesn't agree with me, but you've got to ask the question. This nostalgia train, right? I think there's a play to it. If the team is terrible, you're not going to turn your back on Doug. You're not going to turn your back. And Grant brings up the Vlade example, and I get that's a fair example, but I don't think it's as applicable as it is to the head coach and coaching staff. Because Vlade is basically judged and remembered on one move. How often do we remember a coach on one move? I guess what I'm saying is there's part of me that feels that Vivek knows this fan base will be split. Exactly what Stan put right there. Old school times NBA ball players running it in Sacramento. Love it. It's a situation where you are going to have part of the fans unhappy, and then the other part of the fans not really happy with the product, but they're going to continue supporting the pieces that are in place because of the nostalgia, because of what they meant to Sacramento, because of what they did prior to being on the coaching staff here in Sacramento. And I just feel like it's almost a targeted move. And to Progressive point, like, at what point are we going to run out of Kings with this stuff? I mean, I hope it works before we run out of Kings. Vlade traded Cousins and missed on Luka. That's two things. See, I think he got Cousins right. Because the back end of what you're not thinking about with Cousins is he was going to be due for a massive extension. And you did not want to be in bed with DeMarcus on that type of money. Kings fans never happy, Ryan. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's part of what makes this fan base the best in the NBA, in my opinion, the most knowledgeable too. How about Marv Albert? He is retired. I love Marv. I mean, sometimes his voice can be a little bitey, but Marv's a good guy, you know? 4-3. Him and Bill Walton, man. Like, I'm trying to think about the combinations of play-by-play and color guys that you wish could have worked together, but never did. Like, did Bill Walton and Marv Albert work together? They may have, now that I'm thinking about it. Got to think back to those NBC times. It's what we got for Cousins. Well, I think the word was kind of out on DeMarcus Cousins. Wouldn't you say that's fair, Peter? How many coaches had he ran through? I can tell you specifically, because I had this conversation with Jim Rome. Jim Rome, in fact, it's whatever, the thing behind me. The whole reason Rome came and did his show in Sacramento was because he was going to the game that night also. And he was sitting courtside with Vivek. Jim Rome was freaking floored at the smack that DeMarcus Cousins was talking to the fans, his own fans. In fact, we talked about how he told a woman, and this is the stuff you only hear. TV doesn't catch it all the time. He told a woman who was standing up and booing him to shut the F up and sit her F-A down. The word was out on him. I'm sorry. It just was. You were not going to get full studio. Peter Vesey. Oh my gosh, man. Yeah, is Ahmad Rashad going to start doing, was it inside, not Inside the NBA? What was this show? NBA stuff. NBA stuff. Was there more to not picking up Luka behind the scenes, or was it truly a miss? I wonder. Look, Grant always says that there were other teams that passed on Luka. This is my understanding. You would have had to completely change your roster, and it starts with De'Aaron Fox. I think the thinking that has been explained to me, and that's a better question for Grant, but the way it's been explained to me is it was acknowledged that Luka could probably take you individually further than De'Aaron could take you. But was De'Aaron a better long-term option in terms of being just a number two, an incredible player, a fringe all-star that always was loyal to the city, that was going to stay in shape? Vlade saw that. And Vlade spoke about it. In fact, there was an article that came out just a few months ago. I know some of it's in Serbian. Go check it out. But basically, the overhaul you would have had to do to make it work around Luka was not worth what you could do with Fox. And that was also with the belief that Marvin Bagley was going to be a big piece to that. So, and look, Dallas got rid of Luka for a reason. JJ Redick called out his entire team. And, part of that was targeted at Luka. We got to be in championship shape. So I think that was more of the worry. Luka expressed several times he was not playing in SAC. Interesting. Did not know that. Vlade didn't like Luka's dad, is what some said. But Vlade also was supposed to understand Euro talent better than other GMs, so he got sort of roasted more. Yeah, Vlade took it on the chin for that. Well, it's okay. Had Bagley turned out, I mean this seriously, had Bagley turned out to be a piece that was closer to what Domantas Sabonis has been to Sacramento, excuse me, getting text messages here, probably from somebody like, do not talk. I'm just kidding. But if Bagley had turned out to be a piece that was similar to what Domas turned into for the Kings, would you still look back as a Kings fan and have as much malice and heartburn about not taking Luka? Or would it be a little bit different? Would it be like the Hallie trade, where it's like, well, yeah, Hallie is getting into the playoffs. He's an all-star. Yeah, but we got Doma. You know what I mean? You can't really complain about the Halliburton trade because of what you got with Domas. You can't. In fact, you could argue the playoff streak doesn't end if not for Domas in that trade. But I wonder how much more grace fans would give Vlade Divac on that draft pick had Bagley turned out to be a piece, not the piece, but a significant piece that the Kings could keep building onto. I just think we might look at that different. And quite frankly, I'm sorry to say this, I think part of it, and I've never heard this from Vlade, I've never read it. This is just me from being one of you for my entire life as a Kings fan. Does Luka's style really translate to what Kings fans expect from their players? I mean, there's no guarantee, number one, that Luka would have had success here. There's no guarantee. Now, it's more than likely he would have had success. The question is, would it have been to the same degree that he did in Dallas? But his style of basketball isn't exactly conducive to what gets the fans going here in Sacramento. Passing, sure. Scoring, okay. The defense, the missing games, the being out of shape. Like, imagine, this media, this market, Grant, would have been all over it if the Kings were announcing Luka was out or because of an injury, but it was really to get some weight off of him in 3 weeks because he was out of shape. That stuff would have bubbled to the surface. I just don't know if it would have been a great fit altogether. And you have to wonder if Vlade considered that and considered the fan base and what he thought would be a closer fit to what is a Sacramento King. And I get that's as murky as it's ever been right now under Vivek Ranadive. But those of you that have been fans for a long time, that have been fans since before Vivek's ownership, you know exactly what I mean by that. Exactly. It's a good point. Since Bagley was so bad, it made the fans more mad. Absolutely. Luka is a Hall of Fame player. Yes, he will be. Yes, the Kings allowed their employee cousins to think he was untradeable, etc. The hazing the team allowed was despicable. DeMarcus Cousins ruined Nick Stauskas. Let me repeat that. DeMarcus Cousins ruined Nick Stauskas. Ruined him. Like, didn't Nick just say he decided to retire from basketball not too long ago? Yeah, he ruined him. I hate that we're talking about DeMarcus. I feel like he gets way too much run in this market still. Just way too much. Wow, Stan, popping back. Vlade was a trash GM. Interesting.
That's terrible.
When Scott Perry worked under him, he was the main cause to get those decent players. Scott Perry was in the 3 months. Okay, Stan. Stan knows more than we do. Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Stan. You are a good commenter. You are more on it than off it. You're not erratic like PK. All right. I mean, it seems like it's been kind of hazy about what Scott Perry did here in Sacramento during those years, but all right. Let's see. Vlade also drafted Papa G13 overall, who no one had on their draft board. Okay. We can play this game about who he drafted and who he didn't draft because there were some good draft picks too. I guess here's the question. Can a GM ever have success here in Sacramento as the general manager? Will they ever have success with this owner? Because you know how heavily that plays into it. Jerry Reynolds coming up here in just about 5 minutes. We will ask him some of your questions. We'll talk to him about the playoffs and get his take on the latest news here on Doug Christie and the staff. As I said earlier, back-to-back day. Nape's coming up at 5 o'clock. Make sure you join him for open forum tonight. The King's Court is going to be off the next 2 days. I am going to be out of town. Got to catch a plane tomorrow morning, hopefully without PDA. You know, those real IDs, maybe those will stop the PDA because that goes into effect tomorrow. Got to have your real ID Did I just do somebody a favor? Is somebody here traveling tomorrow that didn't realize that you needed a real ID? But yes, we'll be back Friday. Grant, though, 5 p.m. tonight. Jerry coming up here in just a couple of minutes. You don't need a real ID to get a really damn good meal over at Bennett's West Side Grill. It's their newest location in Rockland. 3 in all here in the greater Sacramento area, Roseville, also Howe and Fair Oaks. It might be cutting it close, but if I were you, I would go to bennettsrestaurants.com and I would be typing furiously to see if you can still get a reservation this weekend for Mother's Day. You've got their weekend brunch, 11 to 2 p.m. Go to their website. Again, bennettsrestaurants.com. You can check out all of their different specials, like their 2 entrees and a bottle of champagne brunch special. Also prime rib on the weekends, happy hour, 2 to 6 o'clock every single day. Prime cuts, seafood, steak, and also, again, amazing specials that just run throughout the week. Specials you won't know about unless you go to bennettsrestaurants.com and check out the menus. And every once in a while, Brian will roll out a seasonal menu, which I love. Like last year, they rolled out a Latin seasonal menu for April. It's awesome. So that's why you got to check that website. You can buy gift cards there. Also, you can put your orders in to go and much more. Let them know you heard about them here on the channel, and vice versa. Let us know when you go in. We'd like to give that feedback to Brian. We've been getting a lot of great feedback from all of you. So thank you for supporting Bennett's and supporting the channel. Big thanks to Brian, Margot, and the team out there. That's Bennett's Restaurants, prime cuts of seafood and steak. Bennett'sRestaurants.com. Go check them out. So what's everybody doing for Mother's Day? That is a darn important day. I can tell. Well, I better not speak too loud. I was going to say, I already got my plans locked in. Paul George is the last of the 2010 draft class. Interesting, Peter. Very interesting. I was going to play some audio from last night's games, but we're not going to have time because Jerry's going to be here in just a couple of minutes. Anything jump out to you? Are you worried if you're the Thunder? I don't think you really are, but we'll talk to Jerry about that. Also, Minnesota and Golden State. That one's going to be an interesting one to me. Real ID, real scam. I know, isn't it funny? Don't you usually have to bring like proof of residency and all that to get your ID anyways? You just have to take it one step further. Like, I get it. I'm with you. Yeah, if you have a passport, I guess you're good. So you don't have to worry about getting your real ID. I know it's not going to matter if this guy has his real ID or not, because I don't think he has any intention of getting on another airplane the rest of his life. We are honored and happy to have Jerry Reynolds here every Tuesday. Jerry, did you get your real ID, buddy?
Not yet. Don't, as you pointed out, I don't really have any plans. My wife and I still have passports in case we could use if it was a total emergency of all kind. I mean right. So you are correct. I have zero plans of ever getting on a plane again. Zero.
So did you always just not like flying and you tolerated it because of the job?
No, I can't say I loved it, but I like a lot of people, tolerated it and enjoyed some of it. And certainly the last years of my career going charter, that was the best way to go. It's terrifically, and you're really spoiled. And I think that did more harm to me than anything, because then after that, flying commercial, and coach, because I never wanted to pay the money for first class. So miserable, just miserable. The whole experience, getting there so early, going through security, bags. No. Like I told the only family member left alive is I got a younger brother, Jeff, that's 78, and he lives in Nashville. And I've told him, I said, if you pass away during the summer, I ain't flying back, buddy. And he said, "That's okay, because I feel the same way. So if you pass away, love you, but I'm not getting on a plane." I said, "I don't mind. It won't affect me one way or another at that stage."
Well, it's so much different too now, Jerry. They've got so much tech now. You can do FaceTime, you can
Yeah,
stream things. You can be there without actually being there physically.
yeah, exactly. And really, and I mean, that to me is the most important thing, showing your respect in those kind of situations. And I think that's, well, anyway, that is my take on flying. And I understand that people have to do it for a living, which I did. Years of
Mhm.
scouting, where you fly into Rapid City, South Dakota, and to Minot, North Dakota, wherever, on little puddle jumpers, and when a few scary outings over the years.
I would imagine for sure. How much different over your lifetime have you seen scouting change? Because I don't think a lot of people realize how it's just what you said. You'd have to go in person, and then it became film exchange, and now it's become really you can find games anywhere. What's that been like for you, seeing that and being a part of it?
Yeah, it's just a totally different world now. You're right. When I first came in the league, and I did some college scouting as well as all the advanced pro scouting. And of course, in the pro scouting in those days, you really went there to get the calls, and because a lot of play calls and very structured kind of offenses, and they're really not the free flowing 3-point stuff that you see today.
Yeah.
And so it was a real skill, and the scouts kind of work together to help one another. It's like, oh, maybe the Atlanta Hawks guy, you're not in the same division. You'd say, "Do you see how did you see that call, or what?" And you'd help him, and those sorts of things. So there's their own little world there. And then college scouting, of course, you had to go see guys, and I think you still need to. I've always said, I think what experience I had in college scouting. I mean, to see a guy, you need to see a guy live before you really break down tape,
Mm.
because you really can't on tape tell the quickness, in relation to the floor, leg speed, physicalness. You kind of need to be there in the mud, the blood, and the beer, kind of evaluating it.
I love that.
And so I think, but after that, after you've seen a guy live a couple times, and then you could break everything down, and they have it now to where, if you want to watch a point guard just on pick and rolls, you can break it down to where you watch him on 150 pick and rolls during the
Right.
and so it's become so much more data driven and accurate and all that. And in a lot of ways, and I've said this, and it's kind of like officiating. They got 3 officials, or better trained. They have all the more things to their advantage. I'm not sure the games are better officiated than they were when they had 2 guys. And when I came to the league, and where they just sort of sometimes make up rules as they went, but it would always seem to it'd be more fair.
Right. It was equal to everybody at the end of the day for the most part. You knew when you were gonna get that makeup call, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they tell you, yeah, I blew that one. Geez, I'll get you back. I'll get you back, coach. And so, and,
100%.
and so, I mean, if they felt they really missed it. Now, there's times when you certainly bitch at them and say, "Bull crap, sit down over there." I got it right. And so so it's very different. Yeah. Like I say, and for the most part, the game, uh, players are more talented, and everything is better, I guess. But certainly it's lost a little too.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I enjoyed our conversation we had about the officiating last week in replay. And even back when you're talking about when you talk to the officials, you didn't have a replay board in front of you. Like you're
Right.
not looking up, or you don't have a coach with an iPad. You're going off that eye. So it's just that much more important.
Yeah, I think a lot. It's a little bit like the college scouting in the old days. A little bit was, at some point, you got to know what you're looking at. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, can this guy's talent? I always remember been around Jerry West a lot, and I thought he was maybe the best, and that's what he'd always say is to focus on what their best parts of their game are that will translate to the league. And he said, I mean, not that you'd always be right, but I always thought that made perfect sense, and instead of guys focusing, well, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. Well, what does he do good? What is he good at? And will his best parts translate?
I love that. I absolutely love that. Back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Silver, if you're listening, back to the basics, my man.
Yeah.
Basketball would be so much better.
I think it's a lost cause there, but that's
we'll see. We're going to talk about the Kings and the news with BJ Armstrong and Doug's staff and the reports. But first, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Coach Pop. Did you get a chance to see his press conference yesterday and stories, thoughts on him leaving the coaching ranks?
Well, yeah, I mean, Pop's, I've known him since when he first came in the league as an assistant with Larry Brown, and then spent a couple of years also as an assistant with Don Nelson. People kind of forget that. But I thought that, he got great training, and he'd been a small college coach, and I even knew then he really didn't have a lot of success as a small college coach. I always used to kid him. I said, damn, I was a hell of a lot better in small college than you were. But I said, sadly, you've been way, way, way better.
Well, I think he had a little bit more to work with.
Well, he had a couple of advantages. Duncan will do that, but just a terrific man. And he's no Hoosier too, by the way. Northern Indiana Hoosier and military guy, Air Force, and I think you can make the case with Pop that he maybe is the greatest coach in NBA history. Not just the 5 championships, but small market and the teams, the championships spread over a period of time, and a couple of different kind of teams to as well.
Sure.
And so, and he, like any coach, people say, well, he hadn't been in the playoffs for several years. Well, he and Pat Riley, maybe the two best. When they didn't have talent, they didn't win games. You're not going to win the NBA if you don't have talent. But when they had talent, they made the most of it, and that's what a coach is. Make your team as good as you can make it. Motivate them and utilize the talent correctly. And if you don't have a lot of talent, you'll still win a few more games than you should. And I think you could say that about Pop in every case.
I think you just knocked it out of the park, because that's the separator for me. I look at Phil Jackson. That's a name that comes up a ton, right? And I'm doing more of the new school. There wasn't much developing Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant was Kobe Bryant. He was who he was coming into the league. And you can go on so forth with Shaquille O'Neal, big guy, bigger than everybody else. But you look at the guys that Pop has developed over the years, and how he always knew how to put the right pieces around each other for the most part. It's astounding.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, his championship team's basically a couple of low drafts. Tony Parker, I think 28th pick in the draft.
Yep.
Manu Ginobili was actually drafted by Houston. I think he was in his 50s where he was picked. And, both obviously Hall of Fame level players, but who saw that coming, and who would they have developed the same way if they hadn't been there?
Right.
That's the other part. And I think that's where the real coaching comes in. Yeah, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, those are can't misses. They're going to be great wherever they go.
I would say this though, Kawhi Leonard was not. I put a ton of that on Pop.
Yeah, there again, that's a great one. I forgot about that. He was 15th, 16th pick, and a lot of people questioned, is he going to be able to shoot well enough to be a player?
Yep. And
of course, like I say, Pop, got mileage out of it, win a championship. Totally different team. So, yeah, I guess for me, maybe it's the Lakers stuff, but with Phil Jackson, he had great players, and he allowed them to be great, and they were great. But I honestly, I think just about any NBA coach, a guy that's had experience at levels being a head coach, could have won a lot of games with the same teams. Maybe not as many championships. I wouldn't, you can't say that, but it's kind of like Pat Riley with the Showtime Lakers. A lot of guys could have won 55, 60 games with those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of guys. Now, he won. I always give him credit like I would Pop or anybody else or Phil. I mean, when you win championships, and that separates you a little bit. But like I say, with Phil, all of his championships came, with a couple of first ballot Hall of Famers.
If you had to pick one offense, would you pick Coach's offense, the Princeton offense, or would you pick the triangle?
I'm probably prejudiced toward Coachy for
Yeah.
sure. I just thought there a little more action to it. I don't know that it would have been as good for a truly great individual player like A. Jordan. I think the thing that was great for Michael Jordan with the triple post kind of situation was spacing.
Mm-hmm.
Because late in games, the spacing was established, and so Michael knew, who was where, and so basically when he was going to go one-on-one and score, he knew where everybody was if he needed help. And I think there was a little less movement, but that might have benefited Michael a lot more.
No doubt. Steve Kerr doesn't get that open if you're not having the spacing as well as they did towards the end of that run.
Yeah, and the spacing, since it was so constant, in other words, Michael knew where the double was coming from.
Yep.
And so, he would know, okay, well, they're doubling me from the guard on top. And so when he comes, like we saw in the Bulls special, be ready. Be ready to shoot because you'll be open.
Yeah, and there's an art to that too. He knew exactly how long to hang on to it. Because if you make that pass too soon, you're not creating that play.
Oh, exactly. That is such a key, of draw. You want to draw the double team.
Yep.
Or you want to go at before the double team is formed, going at the one defender. And that's something else that the great players, the Kobe's and those guys figure out. It's like, okay, they're doubling me from, say, the opposite guard or whatever. Well, then before he can even move towards me, I'm going to go beat this guy one-on-one head up. And so, but that's that's what it's all about, to recognize it. And that's where coaching can come in to some value there, is to remind guys, okay, they're going to double you here, or they're going to, for instance, they may double you, but they may wait till you put the ball on the floor. Okay, and other times they're doubling you on catch. As soon as you catch it, they'll come and double you. So that gives it's a whole different scheme. But the players need to understand exactly. The great ones don't need anybody to remind them, but most players do.
Yep, 100%. So happy to have Jerry with us. We're talking old school hoops. I could do this all day. I want to mix in some questions from the chat, and then we'll start talking about the Kings as well. For Jerry, from the teams that are in the playoffs, who will be the future king or your future king?
For the players in the playoffs, who will be a future king? So we're really asking about what player the Kings might get. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, I can go both ways. Which team is going to be like a future, possible multiple championship winner, or which player from a team playing right now will be a future king? So whichever way you want to take it, Jared.
Well, we take it both ways. Obviously
right.
there's so many players you'd love to have off those teams. I'd probably start right away with Aaron Gordon. That would be what.
Jerry, it's got to be the new saying now. Like this playoff run has cemented it. It is now, when teams are getting close, you're an Aaron Gordon away. He's made that big of a difference for Denver.
Yeah, he has. And, and to his credit, his game has really improved dramatically in the last 2-3 years, because he couldn't shoot very well. When he's in Orlando, they draft him fourth, and there again, there's a case of sometimes teams giving up on guys too soon if they got good work ethic and all of that. But yeah, the guy's a good perimeter shooter now. Who saw that coming? A deep 3-point shooter, and he always had the ability to defend, rebound, and the legitimate toughness. He always had that. So, but yeah. Yeah, who wouldn't want that guy? And that's why some players take a little longer, why you need patience, and also why some guys become superstars. I mean, I always said, who saw Brunson becoming a superstar?
Mm-hmm.
Who saw Steve Nash becoming a superstar? Those are guys that were good and they just kept getting better. Steph Curry, another ultimate one. But then you have the guys that are superstars the first day they put a shoe on the floor in the NBA. But those are very rare. But yeah, the Aaron Gordon would be one. Of course, the playoffs now is just so tough to gauge for me. I really like watching Denver, maybe more than anybody, and Jokic is a big part of it. He's the best player in the world. Period.
Period.
Not even debatable. I mean, I'm okay with Gilgeous-Alexander getting MVP. It's kind of like the Karl Malone getting an MVP when Jordan was still playing. You can't give Jordan MVP every year.
Right.
And so kind of a burnout, but I like watching Denver, because of Rick Adelman's son, David, the coach there, and really happy to see him doing well, but they're fun to watch. Can they win the championship? Sure, they could. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on Oklahoma City. I wouldn't bet on the Knicks. I wouldn't bet on the Celtics, and of course the Cavs. They're crippled up, so they're probably done, and before they even get a chance to compete. That's too bad. And the Pacers are really good. I mean, I wouldn't be totally surprised to see the Pacers come out of the East. I think they have the depth. They have more good players than anybody else. Now they don't maybe have as much star power, but they have a lot of star power too with Tyrese and Siakam. Those two guys are all-star level players.
Don't sleep on Rick Carlisle. He's just that guy that exists in the NBA that's coaching somewhere, but he knows what he's doing this time of year, Jer.
Yeah, one of the best. Absolutely one of the best. His first head coaching job was in Detroit, and he had a couple of 50-win seasons. Goes to the Pacers, has some 60-win seasons. Probably had the best team in 2004, but had two key injuries that's when the Pistons won the championship. But the Pacers were the better team all year long. And then of course won a championship with Dallas. So yeah, the pedigree's there, and I've known him a long time, and obviously it's part. He didn't play much, but he's on a couple championship teams, with the Celtics, with the Bird McHale group.
It's not a bad team to tag along to.
If you can't learn something being around those guys, you're just not very, very observant, are you?
No, you are not taking your mental reps whatsoever. One team that you did not mention, and one thing we did talk about last week, was the Shitbirds, how important they are. The Golden State Warriors, Jimmy Butler, by the day, getting healthier and healthier, and Draymond Green defensively playing out of his mind. How far can they take this?
That's a great question. I don't know. I didn't expect them I didn't think they'd get by Houston, but they did, especially after Game 6. I kind of counted them out. But that shows you, the championship DNA there. As Tom Janovich always said, don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion, and they got some champions there. Coach Kerr, he certainly should be considered as one of the all-time greats, if not right with Pop in my mind. But they can beat the Grizzlies. I kind of think it's the Grizzlies' year, but they are capable. And as you said, they've got a couple of shitbirds.
Couple of them, yeah.
And now it's also true, the Grizzlies got a couple. So there's that. But I think it probably, if I had to, the home court should make the difference, but I don't know that it will.
You think Anthony Edwards is a shitbird? I think he's kind of a star shitbird.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he's he's a talkative, friendly, beat your butt kind of guy.
Okay.
Like a kid that just really, really good and enjoys kicking your butt and telling you about it. But, I don't think there's a mean part to him, that at all. That may come later in his career, but I don't see that. It's kind of like Curry. Curry's but he's and you know he'll compete as hard as you can, but he's not going to take cheap shots on anybody.
True that. He's like that kid that's not afraid of anything. Like when the
Yeah.
rest of the kids are saying there's no way I'm doing that, the kid's already doing it. And you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, it's going to be a really neat series, that's for sure.
okay, Peter has, and I'm going to condense it for you. Any thoughts or a certain point guard that you might be targeting in the off season through free agency or the draft?
Well, I don't really know enough about the draft to comment there. I don't know what's available. I don't study it like I once did, and don't want to for that matter. So, but as far as guys in the league, I mean, there's quite a few guys out there that might be available for the right deal. Now, I don't know if you can get a star type guy. I think the star type guys that might be available is John Morant and Trae Young. Now, personally, between those two, I like Trae Young better because he's a better playmaker, he's a better shooter, and he's available more.
Yeah.
Now and they're both poor defenders. I think that Trae is probably weaker defender than Ja, but it's a catch-22. They're neither one going to be the next Keon Ellis. So there's that. So those are and then LaMelo Ball could be available, but I haven't. To me, right now, he's a bit overrated. I mean, he's a guy that gets 25 points on 24 shots,
Sure.
in a losing game. And I've always said, don't ever. Just always keep in mind that every losing team has a leading scorer.
That's so true.
And sometimes that may be one of the reasons they're losing is that very guy.
Well, you could say that about some guys on this roster right now with Zach LaVine. Chicago has not had great success with him. Same thing with DeMar DeRozan. I guess my question about Trae Young would be, does he cover too much space and hurt the spacing that's already difficult to figure out for this Kings team?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's ideal. What would be ideal is Chris Paul at 25 years old.
Yes.
The two Jones brothers, the Dukies, the different teams, they're both nice, legit playmakers, and whether but they'd help the team. There's no doubt they're good enough to help the team. Schroeder, he didn't work out in Golden State, but he's got talent. He's a kind of a short shelf life kind of guy.
Yeah.
Kind of a different, a little bit of a Patrick Beverly. You like him for a while till you don't like him.
Yeah, he's kind of like Thanksgiving dinner. He's like Thanksgiving dinner.
The guy that really intrigues me a lot is Ty Jerome with Cleveland.
Yes.
Now he's been back. Of course, Garland's hurt, but he has been good all year. His shooting percentage from twos and threes is off the charts, and actually a really good little point guard that was awfully good in the end of the season and in the play-in that got him Davion Mitchell. He was shooting.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was shooting 50% from threes for Miami, and I think Eric Spoelstra there again shows you that he got a lot of mileage and knew how to utilize Davion very well.
I could have sworn somebody was on this show saying, just a little bit more structure, a couple more stops. That guy could be a really good point guard in this league.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I think that might have been me. And I mean, the thing, of course, that's one of the few good things about being old is you've seen it all. And
Yeah.
I can remember, guards, small guards in particular, that teams gave up on. I always point out Kyle Lowry, how he bounced around for 3 or 4 teams before he became really a star. Don't know that Davion will be that, but he could be. But Bobby Jackson, our own Bobby Jackson, I think the Kings were his 4th team, and sometimes it just takes guys the right fit and the right spot. The right coach, the right team, and at the right time. And when they're 20 years old, they're not ready for it. And so there's that. But I mean, I think that's why I always said for point guards, patience is truly a virtue. I mean, it's the hardest position to play, and most guys coming out of college are regardless. I mean, not many, all you know, Magic Johnsons out there. It takes a while, and I remember John Stockton taking 3 years, or
Mhm.
Gary Payton really not coming to his own to his third year. And so, when all-time greats take a little while, don't be surprised if less than that take a while.
Amen. And to your point before about Ty Jerome, I love his movement. His movement is so good. He's all over the court. Kind of reminds you of a better scoring TJ McConnell. Differently
Yeah,
built.
yeah. If TJ were younger, that, if TJ were 27, 28, boy, you'd love to have him. I
Oh
think
man.
I,
Yeah.
I think he could run a team and be a top level. I do, but he's 32 and small, and so that's not going to end. He's probably got another top year left, and Indiana's perfect because with Tyrese they can sometimes they can play them together, so it works out. But yeah, he's one of those guys. I mean, Josh Giddey's an interesting player. Of course, I'm sure the Bulls really have liked him.
Mm-hmm.
He is really developed. So that'll be a key. I think for the Kings, it's going to be they've got to find, I think, almost somebody that's proven it. Been in the league, had success, some level of success, and maybe ready for the next jump. And as we said, Ty Jerome seems like he might be that. I'm sure Cleveland is well aware. I mean, they've watched
Yeah.
him all year, so and he's got nice size, and so. But I mean, you're really going to have to swing for the fences here a little bit.
Yes, I agree with you. And we'll talk more Kings and roster moves here in the coming weeks. I do want to talk about the coaching staff and the front office while we still have you for a few minutes. First off, thoughts on the report that BJ Armstrong is going to be the assistant GM to Scott Perry?
Well, BJ's had a lot of experience in the league. He worked as a assistant GM under Jerry Krause for years. Of course, played for the Bulls, former Iowa Star, and played on some championship teams. And an agent, really, it was a very efficient, effective agent. And I think that's probably a good person to have. Somebody with experience with players through the agents and all that, and the Players Association. So I think that's a very good hire.
Awesome. And Doug Christie starting to work through his staff. Leandro Barbosa is going to come back. We're hearing some names that are being floating around for interviews, reports that Bobby Jackson is likely going to be on that bench. I think that we're both fans of that. There's just one name that doesn't make sense to me, and I know he's an IU guy. He just finished there. Mike Woodson. Does that feel like a Doug Christie guy, Jerry?
Probably doesn't. I mean, I'm a Woody fan. I was lucky enough to coach him a year, being as an assistant, and pro's pro, class guy, hard nosed. You can't say enough. And he's had success as a head coach in the NBA.
Yeah.
Both Atlanta, and of course, he got fired in those jobs. That's what happens. Ask Mike Malone. You can have for Taylor Jenkins. You can have a lot of success. I mean, you're not going to get fired.
Right.
But I mean, so yeah, I guess for me, it's he's at the age I wouldn't know why he'd want to maybe go back to the bench. I'd be surprised if Woody would be willing to step back in so quick. That'd just be my thinking that he may be thinking about maybe going for a head job, whether another college or the NBA. He may have another run in him, but he's about 67, I think, and so that wouldn't, I mean, I think he'd do a good job. Don't get me wrong. I know he's a lifer and he's a hard worker. You can't say anything bad, but just the age thing and being out of the league a while would surprise me a little bit.
Yeah, when you think about him as a coach, what do you think of as his best strengths that he brings to a team?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, when you think about Woody as a coach, what do you immediately think to as his best strengths that he brings to a basketball team?
Well, he's really old school. Now that may be viewed as good or bad, but he's a straight arrow guy, hard nosed, really defensively. Has always with his teams, whether in Atlanta and New York, they were very physical. Uh, Probably offense. You know, you might probably what maybe got him in trouble. His offense was maybe too structured. At least that was a lot of the criticism. I'm not taking the case there, but I mean that when you get fired, there's always things people say that he was too structured, wouldn't let the guys have enough freedom, and but was very demanding, and sometimes it seemed like it worked early, didn't work so well late. You know,
Yeah.
that
Interesting. Kind of like Oklahoma City last night. Didn't work late.
boy, it sure didn't.
Oh
Whew.
man.
Yeah, that was. I mean, what a game! You know, it's funny how that you could almost see it coming. I didn't think they'd win, but but you know, you just like they're going to get back in this game. You know, I just was confident, a little bit like New York. I mean, the NBA, that's the way it is. Boy, once you got a comfortable lead, that's when you better not be comfortable. Because it with the 3-point shot and everything that goes in the game, and the ref sometimes will get caught up in the team coming back, maybe get a break or two, and momentum builds, and so all of a sudden that 15-point lead that looked like a sure thing, all of a sudden it's 8, and then it's like, oh, now we got a ball game, now we got a different game, and we saw it in both those games, and but yeah, that was Oklahoma City. I mean, Denver won, but Oklahoma City, they couldn't have won it without Oklahoma City's help. And so really, it was a case probably where OKC really did lose the game.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. You can't let teams that are behind score with the clock stopped. You just can't do it. And Denver just kept going to the free throw line. I think the big thing is how they bounce back from this. This is the question everybody's asked all year, Jerry. Is Oklahoma City going to be able to deal with the postseason? Last night they could not. I think game 2 will tell you everything you need to know going forward.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. It's the biggest game in a decade for the Thunder because, they got beat last year. They were favored, but Dallas were able to go in there with Luka and Kyrie and beat them. And so, that's why they really added a couple of Hartenstein and Caruso to make their defense better, which they have, a better team. But as you said, that I'm pretty sure that every fan in the building's thinking about that now. Ooh, we were favored last year, and what happened here? And so there's a pucker strings are probably in work right now.
Did you say pucker strings?
You betcha. Going on.
So good. All right, couple last questions to get you out the door. Jerry, do you think this new coaching staff can help the Kings earn a better home record? Very awkward. The Kings have played better on the road versus the home. And just to be clear, there's not a coaching staff in place. A lot of reports, but from what we know, Jerry.
Well, I mean, I think that should be the almost number one goal. You simply have got to be able to win more games at home. I mean, the Kings the last couple of years, been very disappointing in that regard. I mean, I always, we've talked about this before. I always remember one of the worst teams the Kings had. Dick Motta was a coach, and they won 23 games at home. 23 and 18, and 1 game on the road.
Yeah.
Well, that's 24. Well, the point is that's the same home record basically that the Kings have been having.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is a really bad team should win, over half their games at home, and they usually do. They usually do. So, and what really makes me frustrated is like, well, if you can go on the road and win over half your games, which the Kings have done, well, that means you should be able to win 30 games at home and be a 50-win team. So I guess an answer to the question is, yeah, that should be. I mean, look, whatever we're doing at home games, if from last year and the year before, whatever plan we had, change it. Come up with a different way of going about it. And I always remember getting kind of an argument with Coach Mata about the road stuff, and he said, "Well, this is we do it this way, this way." I said, "Well, it ain't working. Just try something else."
Yeah.
I don't know that it'll be better, but what do you got to lose?
Yeah, that can't be worse. I guess let me ask you this, because you've spent so much time in both buildings, in Arco and then the Golden One Center. Is there anything from a structural or building aspect? Players think it's a shooting arena. Is there any big differences that you see that plays to opponent shooting?
I don't know that it's the shooting as much as just the atmosphere itself. I mean,
Okay.
the old building, I mean, that was fans were more right on top of teams, and I think were more intimidating, and I think that really did lead to a bigger and better home court advantage. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind about that. The wood floors, the noise,
Mm-hmm.
and like you say, I always remember. Uh, Before I did TV, and I was be sitting on the end zone in the kind of the and I was maybe 3 or 4 feet from the floor, and yet there were 2 rows in front of me, and all the ladies and people selling drinks or schlepping drinks and stuff. They'd have walk out on the floor. They'd run out on the
Mm-hmm.
floor when the refs and everything's on the other end. And of course, it amazed me that somebody wasn't killed. But the point being is they were on top. That's how close things were. Is the worst and the closest dangerous baseline in the league by far. All the referees talked about it. They said we don't even try to run underneath the basket because there's just too close. And so
Such a good
it was
point.
a different. I mean, it really was a unique, unique arena, even certainly for the visitors for sure. And then plus we had the absolute worst visitors locker rooms. And, I mean, you'd have to go back to the old Celtic days of nails on the wall. That was, I was going to say, I lived through that too. It's like, holy cow. You know,
Oh man.
your worst locker room in junior high was better than the Boston Garden.
That's on purpose.
Oh,
That
that
is
was
totally on purpose.
definitely on purpose. And like I say, that was the locker room for the visitors was not classy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, different time for sure. I'm sure the players union got some negotiating power on this new CBA. Make these locker rooms a little bit nicer on the visitors side. Jer, thank you so much. I'm sure we're gonna have a ton more to talk about next week. Any plans for the rest of the week?
Yeah, my wife and I are probably going to go up to Tahoe and for a few days, and especially when it gets hot here. So go up there, and so that's about it. 2 hours in the car. That's plenty.
Okay, I love it.
You know.
I'm going to Utah tomorrow. Is there
Wow.
anything I need to do in Salt Lake City if I'm
Well,
there?
yeah. Well, go visit Danny Ainge and bring back John Collins.
Got it. I can get that done. Not sure I
Okay.
can do it legally, but I can probably get that.
Okay. Well, that you just get that done, and I think myself and all the fans here we'll put you in a higher esteem than now, even though you're very high, but we'd raise it a notch. You get that done.
Yeah, keyword very high. You're the best, buddy. Have
All
a
right.
great one,
See
Jerry.
you guys.
Thank
Take
you so
care.
much. Oh my gosh. Some of the best times of the week. In fact, the best times of the week with Jerry. Hope him and Dodie have a very safe trip up to Tahoe, and so much appreciate the time with him coming on the show. Grant, remember, he's going to be here in about 20 minutes. So we're going to get ready to wrap up. A lot of good stuff there. I mean, next week, we're going to have a lot more to cover in terms of the coaching staff. We'll have an idea of who's exactly in, I believe, and who's going to be out. I do want to talk to him more about what he said with Davion Mitchell. Not so much that I want Davion Mitchell back in Sacramento, which I wouldn't mind compared to what the Kings have had, relatively speaking, since him as point guards. But what he said about the structure and the coaching, I feel like we're getting to that point with Keegan Murray. And I wonder how much more needs to be done, or does anything else need to be done by the new set of coaches to see what you have in that young man, because I feel strongly that if Keegan Murray goes to another team, much like Davion Mitchell, that came from a college structured environment to a run and flow, let it go kind of offense, did not thrive whatsoever. But then he goes to a more stable, structured Eric Spoelstra environment, Miami, third stop, by the way, because he was in Toronto as well. By the way, Davion beat Fox twice this year. Or one. Did they beat them twice? No, I think the Kings got the second one. He almost beat them. He outplayed them. Davion outplayed Fox twice this year. That's what it was. I want to see if we're missing that element with Keegan Murray, and if Keegan's been given that chance somewhat offensively. So a lot of good stuff there. Hopefully you can, you want me to bring back John Collins. Oh, bring back John Morant with you and bring John Collins back to Sac. Yeah, no problem. I can make that happen. Yeah, I'll just put him in my frunk. That's what I'll do. Kings have no consistency due to shot jacking too many threes. Well, that's the NBA. Yep. Huge thanks to Jerry. Awesome having Jerry. We will, let's see, Thumper, we got to that one. So I think we got to most of your questions. I didn't get to the Lakers one. I didn't really want to go Lakers. So we'll put that one off till next week. But Jerry will be back with us Tuesday. Before that, you got Grant here in about 15 minutes, give or take, do an open forum, which means it is time for us to get out. Thank you for joining me today on the King's Court. Can't wait to be back on Friday. We will wrap up the week with a Royal Rumble Friday. I might try to do a King's Court space from the road. I don't know how good that's going to work out because I'm not sure about reception. But 2 days off for us at the 3 o'clock time slot. We're back Friday, though, to wrap it up. So appreciate you all. Pay attention. I think by the time I get back to Sacramento, there's going to be some more changes, or at least some of these things are going to be formalized and announced. And Stan, what did you tell me? Did you tell me that BJ was a good pick? Okay, great. That's why I said I wanted to ask Jerry. The Jerry days are so good. I know. Really, really good. Yeah, many thanks to Jerry. He's awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Thumper. Appreciate y'all. All right, give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Would really appreciate it. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well. You'll know when we are going live, just like Grant is about to go live here in 15 minutes. Join him. Open Forum. Open Forum Tuesday. I'll talk about the basketball games that happened last night, preview the ones tonight, the Kings moves, take your calls, much more. Go Kings, light the beam. If you lost in the playoffs, you are a DeRozan or Levine away. Come get him. I'll work on bringing back John Collins. Court is dismissed.